Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is well. I hope everybody is safe at home. We've got close to 80 people joining us today, which is absolutely fabulous. So we've titled this the Football Transfer Forum Warm Up. That's Tony's title. I'm not taking any credit for that whatsoever. But we were really keen. Obviously, today was meant to be the day that we were going to be over at the Etihad for another football transfer forum, and unfortunately, given the situation, we're not able to do that. So I think it's great that we're going to be able to just be together for the next 90 minutes or so, and we're really thankful to some of the guys that have agreed to come and spend some of their time with us this morning. And hopefully we can have a bit of a debate. Hopefully we can have some chat. We can learn about what's going on in different clubs, in different parts of the world. And certainly, if nothing else, you know, there's an opportunity for us to talk through how we're all getting through this situation. Tony, how are you? How are you getting through this situation?
A lot of online poker, to be honest. But no. Seriously, we you know, the event. As soon as the January window shuts, I basically crack on, and a lot of my work is to try and put together the football transfer forum, sort of February, March time, April. So you know, that takes up quite a lot of my work, and the first thing that I actually did was to make sure we got Guy Branston on board. So you know, that was a good thing to happen. Obviously, Guy was at the Liverpool one, and I tried to get loan managers involved in the football transfer forum, because I think it's a really good vehicle for them and for the forum itself. Obviously, you know, I was really looking forward to the event. I usually get a bit stressy the week before the event, so it's been a lot easier. The event itself, I mean, the tickets sort of flew off the shelves really early days, and I think, you know, it was looking like it was going to be a very, very good event. It would be our 5th event. We've obviously done Middlesbrough, Leeds, Man City, and then Liverpool, and we were going back to Man City today to do the 5th version. So yeah, I've been busy doing we've done some webinars, done some agent training as well. I've had a couple of issues in terms of deferring wages for players to deal with. I've also had a player who went to Spain just before the lockdown and got stranded in Spain, so that was an interesting one. So yeah, just getting used to the times. I mean, I work from home anyway, so it hasn't been massively different for me. But yeah, you know, coming back to the event, hopefully we'll be able to get a date as soon as possible, you know. And I'm sort of thinking, I'm very hopeful that it might be a July-August event, which would be right in the middle of a window. I don't know what the guys think of that, but you know, we'd have to, if we put the event on in July or in August, something like that, we'd have to really look at our, you know, social distancing and safety measures, really.
Tony, I've found that most people are actively socially distancing from you anyway, and have been for a long period. I think you covered there. Right. So what we're going to try and get through today. First of all, if everybody could just type me a little acknowledgement in the question section, which you can just see on your toolbar, just to make sure that everybody can hear us and see us okay. If you can just drop me a quick note on the question section to let me know that that's all coming through good, which is great. Thank you very much. Excellent. We've got some great guys that are attending today as well, which is absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to show you what the agenda is looking like for the next hour and a half. So once we've got the formalities here out the way, we're going to get straight into that panel discussion with Steve Walsh, with Guy Branston, with Glyn Chamberlain, and obviously with Tony as well. After that, we're going to speak to Julian Dow, who has launched his Football for Football website resource. Really interesting work that Julian is doing, and he's gone and spoken to some of the eminent guys in world football. So it's going to be interesting to hear off Julian. I'm then going to pick on a few people that are attending today, just to touch base. We've got some great guys lined up there. I want to hear how you guys at your clubs are managing through the situation at the moment. Then throughout this period, including the panel discussion, if you've got a question that you want to put to any of the guys, if you put it in the question section, it'll just stay there, and then we'll go through those questions after about 11:20. So if you've got a question at any point, just get it in that question section, and then we'll get through as many questions from the attendees as possible to the guys. Then we're going to speak with Jed Searson, who is former scout at West Ham, former chief scout at Grimsby, about the work he's doing and some of the courses, the really interesting courses that he's doing. And then we'll look to wrap up just before 12 o'clock. So yeah, just an hour and a half. Hopefully we can get through some interesting stuff. That's great that everybody can hear us loud and clear as well. So right, let's get going. Let's get going with speaking to the guys. First of all, guys, welcome. How is everybody?
Very well, thank you. We're doing well.
Good, we're alive. All alive. That's a good start. That's a good start. Steve, I'm gonna come to you first. Since we last saw you at the Football Transfer Forum, you're I'm guessing you're not stateside now, but obviously the role with the new MLS franchise in Charlotte, very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting indeed. After all the things that I've been involved in the UK, it was time to spread my wings. I went over to Charlotte, North Carolina, in December and agreed a 2-year deal with them to be their special advisor. Charlotte is a new franchise that will be coming on stream in 2021, so it gives us plenty of time to actually put the foundations of the club down. It's owned by a guy called Dave Tepper, who owns Carolina Panthers. They have a 75,000 seater stadium, the Bank of America Stadium, over there in Charlotte, and that's where the games will be played. So I'm kind of fully immersed with that now, which is it's given me something to do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've been interviewing. I think I've interviewed 6 potential head coaches to date. I did 2 before lockdown, face to face. In fact, Glyn was on one of my flights when I was on the way back from Germany. I think that's probably the last time we were both on an aeroplane, Glyn, if that's correct.
That's right.
So I've been fully immersed in doing that, and then like every other person in recruitment, we've all got Y Scout, and we're giving that a real bashing at the moment. And no doubt they'll put the prices up because of it. So you know, that's where I'm at. Exciting new project. I'm re-energized if I ever needed that, and I'm certainly looking forward to that challenge. Coronavirus has definitely thrown one in there for us all, but I'm sure we're going to discuss that in more detail. I've got my ideas, and I'm sure everybody else has got theirs.
So I'm really interested, Steve, because it's such a strange situation to be in. You know, you've got such a long lead time into your first set of games. Not only are you having to recruit a head coach, you're having to recruit an entire squad. How are you tackling that change? Normally, of course, at clubs you're not having to recruit 20 players, and normally the recruitment process of recruiting a manager is obviously much shorter than what it is now. How are you finding that different reality?
Well, the timeline for it is the 4th of January is projected for us to start pre-season training, and then to start our games in the league would be the end of February, early March. That weekend is the first games in the MLS. Now that could change because all world football, as we know it, apart from the Burundi Premier League, is on hold at the moment. And so we've got a situation now where the MLS this season has only played 2 games. So we'll kind of be driven by what they're going to do now, whether they decide, because they've only played 2 games, to hold it, or whether they want to continue with it, or whether they want to continue it within a more smaller package. So our timeline will depend on that. So we actually might even have more time than we actually budgeted for. But you're right, we were looking certainly at players' contracts and whether they're out of contract in the summer. That certainly bore part of our strategy. And the way things are going at the moment, there's going to be a lot of footballers out there without jobs, I think. And these are real uncertain times. It is, I'm sure we're going to get a chance to discuss all this later on. So
yeah. One final question to you, Steve, before we move on. The 2 new MLS teams this season, Beckham's into Miami, and I think it's Nashville, the other one.
Nashville, yeah.
Both really struggled in their first 2 games. Really struggled. How closely have you been paying attention to the work that they've done?
Yeah. Well, we've certainly looked at them as a model. We've looked at all the teams as models and deciding which way we want to go. And you're right, I've watched quite a lot of the MLS football, and both teams have struggled in their first 2 games, which in some way maybe takes the pressure off us for next season. I don't know. We'll see. But obviously, each club have got their own strategy. We've got ours. Our sport director is Zoran Kranata, and we've got our way of working. Other people involved in that, Tom Glick, people who were at Derby will remember Tom. Tom is now president of the Charlotte Panthers, but also is involved in the MLS, setting up of the MLS franchise as well. So there's 2 really experienced guys there who've got a lot to offer, and I'm kind of going to help them to put down the foundations and hopefully head up that management recruitment thing that we're involved in at the moment.
Fantastic, excellent. Thanks for that, Steve. Guy, I want to come to you next. Obviously, there's a really interesting dynamic, isn't there, for the players that were out on loan? Certainly, your boys that were out on loan from Leicester. Tell us about how they're feeling and the fact that they've not been able to complete their loans. What impact might that have on the parents' club perception of them, and whether those guys are going to get new contracts or whether what's going to happen, because it seems like there's a lot of unknowns at the moment.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us on. Thanks for getting me on. I mean, we're kind of treating it as the off season, and the players are reporting back on a daily or weekly basis to me. Then I'm feeding it back into the football club. Obviously, we've spread it around with various different staff members, so the continuation with the connection with the club doesn't just keep coming via me. It has to be for other people. There's enough staff to keep communicating very well with these players that have been out on loan. It was important that it wasn't just one voice when I took this role. It was important that we got other people involved from the football club to help these lads understand the connection they still have with Leicester City, so they're not forgotten. And we've just been treating it as off season and keeping ticking over. They've got the programs from one club. They've got a backup program from our football club, obviously their parent club. And these guys are you know, good pros. They're 21, 22 now. They wouldn't have got to this stage unless they were good professionals. And you expect them to kind of tick along and do what they need to do to get where they need to be. And if I need to bring them into line from time to time with a conversation, which I haven't had to do, you know, I'll be willing to do that. But I'm in a good position with good pros around me to work with them, and they're getting back to me on WhatsApp. We're doing, you know, video footage conferences like we've all explained on various different platforms. And, you know, we're talking around what might happen, where it might happen out of contract, in contract, and, you know, discussions with the players' contracts is always done above me. And obviously it feeds back to me when I need to have a conversation with the lads. But 9 times out of 10, I pass it on to John Rudkin, who's the sporting director. So if they come to me with anything that needs to be covered, I just go straight to John, because it isn't really my department.
And guys, is there any murmurings of when the staff or the players might be getting back to work properly at Leicester?
Yeah, I think the murmurings and the rumours are been obviously well documented in the press. Again, you don't know how true it is, so I don't want to speculate, but I haven't heard anything personally myself. I was, you know, on the WhatsApp groups, and various different information was flying around from the EFL yesterday. You know, how that got out, it's always going to get out if people are putting it on WhatsApp groups, because people share it for fun. Yeah. So you have to be a bit cautious. But no, if that's gospel, I actually know one of the lads who did it, so you have to be a bit careful. And
this is the Bristol Rovers' manager for people that.
I was trying to keep it under wraps.
It's out there.
But no, it wasn't. Actually, breaking news. It wasn't the manager.
Right.
Okay. So it wasn't the manager. So I'm not saying much more. And it was just one of them things that is obviously floating around. You hear obviously different rumours. It needs to be grabbed on and sorted out, because, like you said, there's lots of players involved. But if I'm honest, safety first of the human being that's out there, rather than, you know, worrying too much about the footballers and, you know, their good jobs that they work in. They're okay. They're safe and sound. Let's worry about the general public first before we start worrying too much.
Yeah, for everyone, that was Guy Branston saying safety first, which is the opposite of your social distance, the opposite of your playing style, Guy. So
I got well paid to look after people close to me. I was like a security guard for attackers.
I was going to say, no social distancing when you were marking, eh?
Well, it's the back of the head, wasn't it? I think it's as close as you can get to it.
Excellent.
That's why I'm away from the camera, because of my bruising.
Thank you, Guy. And Glyn, obviously, the last time we saw you, you were just moving on from Cardiff, and you've obviously took a really new, exciting role as head of European scouting for Blackburn. So how did that come around, and how have you enjoyed working at Blackburn?
I started 1st of February, and then everything's come crashing down in the last couple of weeks, obviously. I spoke to Tony Mowbray, and I spoke to Mark Venus and Stuart Harvey, head of recruitment. There was a role there that they wanted fulfilling. I thought it'd be a challenge, a task. Look forward to it. Took it on board. I've got to the stage of my career now where I'm looking at who I'm working with and working for. Tony Mowbray is a Neil Warnock stroke Sean Dyche type manager. My last 3 managers have been hugely experienced managers. I've learned a huge amount off them, off all 3. And the role came about after we'd had 2 or 3 discussions. They've got 1 or 2 scouts placed in Europe, in Germany, in France, in Portugal, Spain. So it was to coordinate that side of it. But I also have got involved in some of the UK stuff as well.
Yeah. And Blackburn, obviously just before the lockdown, were generally, the green shoots of them coming fully out of the troubles that they've had in recent years seem to be, not only just there, but really there. So give us a sense of what it's like at the club at the moment. Are people optimistic?
Yeah, I think they're optimistic. I think they're very positive. I think the manager's done a terrific, manager and staff and board have done a really good job in levelling it out. in levelling probably the expectation, probably I think the toxicity has gone out of the football club.
Yeah,
that way to say it, and it's a good environment to go to work in at the moment.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, again, we'll have to see what will happen in terms of the end of the season. But yeah, let's get into that. You know, coronavirus, COVID-19, it's got huge implications for the game, not only in the short term, but in the long term. Steve, what do you think will be the implications in the short term, and do you see any viable way out of, first of all, sorting out this season?
Well, I think there's a number of different organisations with different agendas. I think, first of all, the government, we've all got to be led by what the government say, and their guidelines, social distancing, and all the rest of it. But I think that they're keen for certainly the Premier League to start again because of the feel-good factor that it might actually generate to people in the broader spectrum. You know, there's a lot of football fans out there who see football as the norm. So we've got the government who are really encouraging the Premier League to try and seek solutions so that they can return. So I think those two are kind of having a lot of discussions at the moment. As far as the clubs are concerned, again, maybe we're talking the people I talk to in the Premier League. They've all got their own ideas because they're all in different positions. You know, people who are in the bottom three, you know, they've got their own agenda. People in the top four, top five, top six, again, they've got their own battles. The ones in the middle are probably the ones who are maybe talking the most sense because they've not actually got any hidden agendas. So it's difficult from that point of view. But then we've got the staff and the players. You know, I know that some management are very reticent to endanger life, and that's what it's about, really, endangering life. I can imagine younger pros, you know, the 19, 20, 21-year-olds are really keen to get back and want to play because, you know, everybody says, you know, you're not under massive risk the younger you are. But maybe the older pros who maybe have, I don't know, relatives, elderly relatives who are living with them, you know, young kids, you know, are you going to go to training and then consequently endanger your family when you go home? Because you know, football, you know, social distancing, as Guy has already alluded to, is an impossible situation in football. So if you're picking up somebody from a set piece, you know, who's, you know, saliva's round, it's not, you know, we know we've got have had people in the past who bite players and spit at players on purpose, but you know that in the course of the natural game, you know, you're going to get that interaction. So it's a very difficult situation for everybody, and we need to proceed with caution. Is what I would say. We need to proceed with caution, and the people who are making the decisions on health grounds, for me, are the people we really need to be talking to and listening to for their advice.
Steve, can you see a scenario where the Premier League is expunged as well, or do you think that's just such a drastic step, especially given the situation where Liverpool are at the moment? Is that just something completely unforeseeable?
Well, the Dutch league have completely eradicated everything as if it didn't take place. Yeah. And I think that in itself is an impossibility with the Premier League, and an unfair thing to do as well. When Liverpool is so far in advance, you know, they need to be granted that status of champions because they're worthy champions without a shadow of a doubt. And there's not many leagues that you can say, well, they're so far ahead that it would probably be impossible for any team to catch them. So from that point of view, I think that now I have heard one or two things mooted. One idea on the table at some point was to promote Leeds and West Brom into the Premier League, and to leave the league as it was, make Liverpool champions, and whoever's in those European slots to take their place next season, and the league to run with 2 extra clubs for 1 season or maybe 2 seasons to then equalise it in terms of bringing back the numbers. So that's one thing I've heard, and that seems quite a logical and sensible position, except the Premier League clubs are driven by the finances, they're driven by the players, and they're also driven by the other variables, you know, the government and their advice and all the rest of it. So it's not cut and dry. But there are situations out there which might just remedy it. You're not going to please everybody. Whatever decision is made, somebody is going to be upset about it, because if that scenario happened where Leeds and West Brom, we've got the 4 clubs in the playoff places, are certainly not going to be very happy about that. You know, I think it's Preston, Brentford, it's Preston, Brentford, Fulham, and who's the other club? Come on.
Bristol are up there, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they're not in the top 4, I don't think. Anyway, but that's obviously an issue that they wouldn't be very happy with. But it's got to be remedied. And a lot of clubs in Europe have voted with their feet and cancelled. Germany look like they're ahead of the game and they're looking to try and get back. So again, you know, we need to look at all the situations. If Germany do get back, let's have a look at their results and whether the virus has taken effect. You know, so it's going to be an interesting time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Glyn, what's your take on it? Obviously, being at a championship club in the EFL, they've got a decision to make about 71 teams. Obviously, with Bury not in there at the moment. Obviously, we heard the sort of leaked potential news yesterday. Have you got any sort of feelings on the ground in terms of how it might look in the championship and the rest of the EFL?
Well, the first thing I agree with is, Steve, whatever decision's made throughout the whole 92 clubs, somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yeah,
it's the nature of it, isn't it? You know, you're talking about the teams who are trying to get through the playoffs, then you're talking about the next batch of group teams in that who are trying to get in the playoffs. You know, so there's going to be disappointment right throughout whatever decisions are made. The thing I look at most is we've got the Premier League, we've got the EFL, we've got the FA, we've got the PFA, we've got 5 or 6 different organisations. But what I'm looking at really is there isn't a leadership of everything to pull together for the sake of football. Everybody seems to be looking after their own agendas, their own club or their own league, their own association. And basically, without them 72 or without them 20, we need to protect the football clubs first. Players will come and go over a period of years. The football club has to be in place. There has to be a Mansfield Town, there has to be an Exeter City, there has to be a Scunthorpe United. So I'm looking at people who are right. I'm looking at some sort of leadership on how are we going to protect them football teams. How are we going to look after those football clubs?
Yeah, and do you think, and do you have concerns about that? Do you think that the governing bodies, as Steve alluded to, with different agendas, do you think they're in a position to maybe put some of those agendas to aside to maintain these organisations? Or do you think we will see clubs lost?
They've got to be put aside at this moment in time for the sake of football. All right, Mansfield probably get 2,500 supporters. Mansfield's important to the people, and Mansfield, it's not really in Manchester City's reckoning or in Derby County's reckoning, but it's important in Mansfield, important to Scunthorpe, important to Grimsby, you know. And at the end of the day, that's not so much now, but over the last 30, 40 years, people have gone on to play at bigger levels from Mansfield and Grimsby and Scunthorpe and Exeter. So we've got to keep them football clubs. And how we do it, I don't know. There's far cleverer people in the game. We must make sure that them 92, 91, should be 92, are protected so that we can keep the competitions, so that we can keep the integrity of the football in this country.
Absolutely, and and I think it's a discussion for us all to consider when you see the airline industry potentially getting a multi-billion payout package. So far, nothing has been muted in that respect to football. And in fact, in terms of other than the sort of state aid that's available to everybody, football clubs haven't had any additional monies given. There's been some money forwarded from the Premier League. There's been some monies forwarded out of the EFL, but there's been no additional cash as of yet. Guy, what's your take on the situation, and you know, what have you observed that either gives you hope or gives you concerns?
I think a lot of my ideas on this is that we're doing a lot of things very, very early. Cancelling leagues, giving out championships, giving out, you know, various different things in Europe. For me, it's too early. It's far too early. It's been too quick to make decisions. I know the projection is we're going to be in this for a long time. I understand that. But I still think we can take our time making decisions that need to be made regarding the Premier League, regarding the Football League, even regarding the non-league. I think to quickly turn around a season in 6 to 8 weeks and decide that the season's over would be nearly downright ridiculous, in my opinion. Just sheerly down to the fact is that Liverpool obviously are runaway leaders. Then there's playoffs to be made and decisions to be made on that. Then there's relegations and livelihoods to be made on going further on down the leagues. We're only in a period of time that's nowhere near looking like an off-season and a pre-season. We haven't even gone into the 12-week, 13-week, 14-week mark yet, where we should really be starting the season if you're projecting a league start. And we're deciding on this season and next season and the season beyond just to talk about something when we've got, like Glyn said, all these different governing bodies and waiting to make these decisions, guided obviously by the government. And I just think we need to get in a room and discuss it verbally with each other and see where we go with it, because I just think there's plenty of time to make these decisions further on down the line. You know, it won't hurt the league if we start in September or finish the league in September. It won't hurt if we start in October. Yes, we've got the livelihoods of players, but the likelihood of this thing passing by then is a lot damn sight more obvious and a lot more, I would say, covered and looked at, rather than making the decision now and then, you know, realising that something's not happened in its place. I just think we get a bit carried away making decisions, I think people do. And I think sometimes we've just got to just see where this is going and see if it's going to affect more people in the general public. And again, they're the most important people when we are on here talking about it, because if we cover and make a mistake bringing football back early, and social distancing, discussions, you know, lads getting ill, like Steve alluded to, with the parents, the family members, the kids, footballers, you know, again, having to play for the sake of playing, to keep the fan happy. We've got to be really careful what we're discussing, what we're deciding, because I just think we take a breather, we see where this pans out, and as a footballing man, ex-player, would I want to be going out there and risking my livelihood and risking my life and risking my children's life to go and get, you know, drenched with sweat, with other people's sweat on me, to then bring home to my children? I don't know. I'm still trying to make that decision.
Tony, what have you got any thoughts? Obviously, from your perspective, again, it's a different dynamic. Again,
I think the idea that was mooted, which was behind closed doors. You know, when you watch there was a UEFA, Man U were in the UEFA Cup, weren't there? Behind closed doors. It's not the same experience for anyone, players, spectators, fans, and that concerns me, that behind closed doors isn't the same product that the Premier League and the other leagues, with fans there and people there cheering the players on. And also, when we do come out of this, because I think we've got to look on the positive side, we will be coming out of this, and they've talked about some green shoots. It'll be the financial state of the football club. So the Premier League, it's so well resourced, should be all right, you'd think. The Championship, well, you know, the finance of the championship or a car crash before this happened, that's going to impact on players, that's going to impact on livelihoods. And then as you go further down in League One and League Two, those clubs are existing on, you know, month to month basis, some of them, you know, and we've seen some of them already go out of business, and that's what worries me. So when we start looking forward, and the key date for me is June the 30th. June the 30th is when the players' contracts come to an end. If you're out of contract then, what do? Do you still play a few more games for the club you were contracted to? So the 30th of June is a key date. I can't see the leagues being finished by then. Obviously, in the Premier League, there's not as many players coming out of contract as lower down in the League Ones and League Two. But when you look at that 30th of June date, I can't realistically see that football leagues are going to be finished by then. And then you'll probably have weaker squads for the teams that are mid-table. The teams that are higher up and are going for promotion or going for relegation, they might re-sign some of them players, or they might get better players in, but they can't play in that particular league, can they? You know, they can't play in that particular season. So the competition itself is going to be weakened as well.
Can I just go back to one of the points we made about the business side of things? I mean, we've been bailing everyone out. Again, going back into football, but in general in the government as well. We've been bailing everyone out. But isn't business about making money? Isn't business about building and creating and upscaling and becoming bigger and bigger and making more money?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what business was about when I was growing up. You know, you make money, then you make more money, and then you scale up again, you make more money, you scale up again, you become rich. That's what I thought business was about. I know it's not as simple as that, but we've gone out and started bailing everybody out. If we're going to bail out football clubs, and I get that, because I obviously fully respect that, because I played for why can't we look to the council also to support these football clubs that are in the area, that support the community, that then grow the community for the councils as well, and make better people who go to watch football, who help the football clubs? Why can't we support that with the council? Because there's got to be options there to support the football clubs via the councils as well. If we've got football clubs that are unsustainable, why haven't people already jumped into them football clubs from the local councils to make them more sustainable? I can never grasp how these clubs are not sustainable on a day-to-day basis anyway.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is the leagues themselves are the owners of the leagues are the owners of the clubs, and they set the rules. What I am aware of was well before any of the coronavirus, the Football League, the EFL, are seriously looking at putting in major restructures to bring the level of wages down. And if you look at the economics of most clubs, it's the wages, it's the player wages that is the strain. And FFP hasn't cut it in respect of bringing those down. Steve, I just want to give you the chance to come back on any of those points before we move on. Did you have any comments on what the other guys have said?
Well, I've heard that 50% of players in Leagues 1 and 2 will be out of contract in the 30th of June. And as Tony quite rightly said, that's going to become a breaking point, isn't it? And I applaud Guy's sentiments in terms of wanting the game to continue whenever, but it's got a knock-on effect from what happens the season after. I know that from a Premier League perspective, if Sky call in all the money, Premier League clubs will lose something in the order of 30 to 40 million each. I think that's a consideration that's got to be thought about. So it's again, you know, from all those aspects, it's not a simple. There's no silver bullet out there. We've got to. And I take what Glyn said. Maybe we need a high-powered think tank who has got the greater interest of the game and not just one club or one league or one television company. I think we need to have a think tank, what Glyn alluded to, made up of people who have got a good measure on the whole spectrum of the game, and then use the governments and the people who have got that skill to make things happen.
Fantastic. Right, guys, we're going to have to leave it there for the moment, but everybody stay online, and if anybody's got any questions based on what you've heard, keep putting them in the question section. We've got lots to answer a little bit later on. But we're now going to move on and speak with Julian Dow. Julian, are you there?
I hope so. Have you got me?
We've got you. If you turn your webcam on, we'll be able to see you.
Oh, you don't want that, do you?
Oh.
I'll get dressed.
Okay. How are you, Julian?
Yeah, very well, to be fair. Like I said, just absolutely fantastic to hear some of the points that the gents are pulling up there. And again, it just underpins a little bit about what football's doing. A lot of people have been commentating on the various scenarios and, you know, permutations of what COVID is, and they are just commentators as opposed to people who are well placed in the game, like the people you've got there. And that's what, again, football comes into play with. It's great that you're seeing loads of people getting active, and there's a webinar or a podcast or a Zoom every 5 minutes from people who have an opinion on the game, which is, you know, they're valid and it's entitled to, but a lot of them are peddling it off as advice without any authenticity or without being able to put a pair of boots on or been around a pair of boots. And that's where the inception of Football for Football is. We found that there's a massive gap between people playing the game and people being educated to play the game. And I think even Guy will probably be well placed to deal with this as somebody who's been in the game, you know, a very long time as regards to playing and then just transitioned into the actual side of working with players. I could bet there's a difference in culture, in mindset of the players that you're dealing with, who are in the loan system, in the development phase section of the clubs, and it's just about getting them to understand that what you're giving them is not a pep talk. These are devices that are going to give them careers, and this is where Football for Football comes into play. That I wanted to get a bit of a think tank and a knowledge base of players, experts, coaches, and anybody who has an influence or a role in the game to come from a standpoint and say, look, these are the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of what we do in football, what we do as a scenario. Because unfortunately, the players that are coming into the game now, at whether it be grassroots, whether it be scholar, they're being led down a path that's not necessarily their fault. Especially now with the way that the media's gone, and there might be a shift in the landscape as regards to how the media portrays football and its, you know, participants. But I think the players today we're technically brilliant. They're getting all these skills, but they're not getting the life skills. They're not getting the understanding of the requirement to play the game. And the only way they're going to get that is to hear from people who've actually done it, like, for instance, the people you've got there.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Julian. And obviously, Julian, you were, for the guys that don't know, you were an extremely well thought of prospect at Manchester United. And obviously, you did go on to having a playing career. How much of your own experience really has been the sort of fundamentals of trying to create a resource to go down this objective road that you're discussing?
Ryan, it's been the absolute driver. Now, for instance, you know, at many parts, I was a young footballer. I was one of those ones that many of the people there would have seen, you know, burst onto the scene at 14, 15, being hailed as X, Y, and Z. But what clubs didn't realise, you know, I had no real support base at home. I was playing football from the age of 12 organised. I did 9 years as a pro or in the pro game. My mum's never seen me play. She was working all the time. I was signing contracts, 15, 16, illegal contracts, what transpires to be, we were pro, where I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was only when I got going in the game, you start speaking to senior pros and they're giving you a bit of a steer that, you're making mistakes. And unfortunately, I was making mistakes as a kid out of naivety that unfortunately in the game it turns into malice because you start backing yourself. So at 17, 18, when I'm playing in the first team and I'm saying I think I should get this because, then people go, hang on a second. And then unfortunately again I got injured. I got a first knee operation at 16, and because of getting pressure by the club, after my first operation, I was back playing after 5 weeks after having a cartilage operation. I had a clean out at 17, and then subsequently I had 6 more operations, and I retired with a cartilage injury, which is ridiculous. So again, it's getting people to young players who, if something's wrong, they need to know to ask the right question. They need to know when something's not quite right, where a lot of us will either put the head in the sand or they'll do stuff out of, I'm going to try and be a tough guy and go through. So it's all about getting players to say, look, this is what happens in this situation. This is what I did, so they can tap into that. And ultimately just giving themselves a bit more of an informed sort of like choice for when they're trying to progress their careers.
Excellent. And in building the resource, if you can just explain to everybody some of the people that you've been able to go and speak to, and more importantly, spend some time with. I know you were over in Sweden recently at Sven's, which to be honest looked like a sort of pleasure palace or something like that, which I imagine is just his home. So yeah,
incredible. I even got a hot dog. No, again, fortunately, there's people on the panel there that I've been able to spend some time with, such as Glyn and Tony, and obviously Guy. You're on my radar, pal. I'm coming for you, and obviously Steve. Because people need to know that the football family is brilliant, and they want to help everybody, and just the dynamics of the game just means that they become a bit segregated. They can't. Young players aren't asking up anymore, and senior players aren't being heard, or people who've actually done something in the game. So football just created a place where they can just knowledge share. And again, because of my background and be able to tap into people. So obviously you've got Ryan over there. So when I told Giggsy what I was up with, he was like, somebody must be doing it. And I said, no, they're not. Well, the club should be doing it. Well, they can't. The FA should. So I said, no. And the next minute, once I fully explained, he goes, do you want any more of the lads? And then the next minute, we've got about multiple Champions League winners, Premier League winners, and then it's just snowballed where, fortunately, I've been invited to Ajax, Feyenoord, Real Madrid, been in United, Red Star. We've been to some great clubs because they want to say, this is what we do. We want a knowledge share, but there's no portal to do that. And again, we've got players who have been captains in World Cup finals, but have also played 300 games in, the conference. There's a lad we did the other day, and he never played higher than League Two, but he got paid as a professional footballer for 24 years.
Yeah.
Now, there'll be some kids that probably Guy speaks to who've probably got a disillusioned vision of their pathway, and you could probably say that to them, Guy, that look, this could be an option, and it won't be heard. They'll leave Leicester, and they'll absolutely rock it. And when somebody gives them a chance at a Scunthorpe, a Grimsby, because they've not put the mental processes in place, the talent and the physicality is there, but they're not being able to apply it because they're not really taking on board the little signals and nuggets that somebody like yourself, Guy, would be giving them.
Yeah, the exit strategy is getting better though, Julian. I think that's something that has been looked at for the past 4 or 5 years, but you are right. I do totally agree with what you're saying. It's getting to a stage where you've just got to educate the lads in a good process on the way out as well.
I think
totally, Guy, sorry, just jumping there. The strategies are absolutely, are getting better. They're getting people like yourself in place who've played, but culturally, once those lads step away from the club, their peer pressure and peer influence, they're not really tapping into what you're saying. That's what I meant. You guys are doing a great job.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, there's a lot of people that are listening in today that are involved in youth development. There's some academy managers on there, some sporting directors on there, which is great. So, Julian, if you could just finish it off by just sort of giving us the spiel in terms of where people need to go and access it.
So basically, football has clear demographics. So it's whether you're a parent, a coach, a player, of various levels, and we've got some fan stuff on there, but it's not really catered for fans, but they'll find something authentic because we're not trying to be a sensational thing. But footballforfootball.com, it's free. There's no pay, just sign up and get some content that you can hopefully apply, and this times like this will entertain you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Julian. Thanks for coming on.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for letting me be on.
Cheers.
Julian.
That's absolutely brilliant. Excellent.
Cheers, Julian. Top man.
Julian.
What I'm keen to do now is I'm keen just to touch base with a few guys that are listening in, and I'm really keen to see how they're getting on. So I'm just gonna try and speak to Lee Darnborough, sporting director at Hull City. Lee, are you there?
I wasn't, no. I am now, yeah.
How are you, my friend?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Let us know how are things at Hull at the moment. Obviously, you guys are in an interesting position. Obviously, you're out of the relegation zone within the Championship at the moment. How tense is the situation in terms of what's happening in terms of the resolution of the league season for you guys?
I think first and foremost, obviously, everybody around the country is more concerned with the health matters. Obviously, from a club point of view, the owner's got to obviously put things in place to make sure the business and the football club survives for its players, its employees, its community. So, yeah, we're obviously under the guidance of Premier League, Football League, the government, and just waiting what the next steps are, really.
Mm. And have you guys got any sort of loose plans of coming back? Obviously, there must be some sort of planning of different scenarios.
Yeah, the players are obviously doing their bit that they can do remotely, and we've got obviously rough guidelines to return in the next few weeks. But those have been moved back to once already, and as with everything else, they'll probably keep changing depending how things are going in the community, really.
Mm. Tony, did you have anything that you wanted to put to Lee whilst we've got him on?
Yeah, Lee. The scouts, what are they up to at the moment? What have you got them doing? Is it Y Scout?
We've got a mix. Obviously, some of the guys they haven't got the games to go to, so part of the department is on furlough. Some of us are working on data projects. Those guys are still going, and yeah, I suppose the biggest thing is waiting for the agents to make their move a little bit. We've got budgets in place, and we've forecast what we can afford to recruit to going forward. So makes some conversations really easy, but then makes the job difficult as well. But yeah, obviously the inability to get out to live games is one issue, but there are archives and ways of finding footage on players historically anyway. So
yeah. And Lee, have you got many players coming out of contract this summer?
Yes, yeah, normal summer for us. So
how many roughly?
About 10. About 10.
All right.
We've got 5 players on loan with us as well. So
yeah,
it's
lots of decisions to be made.
Sorry.
Lots of decisions to be made on those players.
Yeah, I think what are we today? May. So from that point of view, it's nearly the end of the season, as it would have been. So a lot of plans and conversations have gone on, both with the owner and obviously with Grant as the head coach. So we know what we're trying to recruit towards. Obviously, the biggest shift in the market at the minute is what football looks like going forward, whether that's behind closed doors for a set period of time, and then obviously the impact that has on income and revenue within the club then to use for obviously player recruitment.
I mean, I know your budget over the years has sort of been decreasing. Your playing budget. Would you say that it's going to go even further down?
Yeah.
And do you think? Sorry.
No. So we had a budget set probably about 12 weeks ago, and then we had a meeting last Tuesday, and it's gone down again. So yeah,
right.
We've revised budget.
Yeah. Lee, do you think it's going to benefit the players that are already at the club? Because it may well work out to be easier to actually physically sign those players rather than sign new players. Do you think it might benefit those players?
Contract.
Yeah, the existing players, Lee.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I think it's a difficult one because obviously a lot of them are legacy signings from parachute payment times in our case, and without knowing what I know what our landscape is going forward financially, but I mean, Glyn's on the call as well, so I don't know what their budgets are. But you know, we've got some really big spending teams in this league, and what we can afford to pay people historically, there's always somebody who's going to pay more. And I suppose really it's just where clubs are going to cut their cloth to. I mean, you read all the things about salary caps. I'm sure there's going to be ways around it. You hear all the things about financial fair play being in place as a method of controlling costs, of which obviously player wages is probably the biggest. And clubs are still in trouble. So the players we have and players that are getting put to us, I think, have still got expectations. And I don't know where their expectations are going to be levelled out at, whether that's themselves or via their representatives.
I think it's time for a reset, Lee. I think that there's going to be a lot of players who are out of contract who are going to be out of work, sadly. And I think it's probably going to be a buyer's market as far as that's concerned. Can you, Lee, just asking you a question, can you see this being the end of some football clubs? Not necessarily the Championship, but maybe further down the leagues, Division 1, Division 2?
Yeah, I only know internally our circumstances. I can't speak for any of the other clubs in the pyramid, but the one thing that's consistent is that either fan revenue through tickets, obviously match day hospitality, the programs, all the things around what they spend attending the games is obviously a significant part, as is obviously the TV money that gets diversed and spread out throughout the league. If we don't play again in front of crowds until 2021, that's going to be a significant chunk of money for certain clubs, even down into the non-leagues. Glyn lives in Stockport, so Stockport gets 3,500, 4,000 through the gate. That's big money. I think it's how we come out of that, and then the other element to survive is player trading. But if it's you indicated there, Steve, it's going to be a buyer's market. So player X was worth X, he's now worth X divided by pick a number. But I think there's always going to be somebody that wants that player, and it's where clubs maybe come together, not officially come together, but we've all had the calls where we all might be interested in the same player, and it's who gets the biggest transfer fee level, who gets the biggest wages level, and who gets the biggest agent fee level. They generally get the player. So it's how we reset within the parameters of what our incomes are, I suppose. And we've kind of done that over the last 3 years. We've dropped, in terms of our wage budget, it has dropped. And it's going to go down again. But our owners, his vision and his thoughts for the club is that the club remains. So we have to operate within the costs we've got. Wherever that ends up is where it ends up. But he wants to be in a position that ensures there's a club still in the area.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lee. We'll let you go. Thanks for that. I want to bring in Jakob in the Faroe Islands. Jakob, are you there? Oh, Jakob, I think you might be self-muted. Okay, that's a shame. But Jakob's been in touch with me because actually the Faroe Islands League is due to get going again on the 9th of May. The league has... Oh, Jakob, you there? Can you hear us, Jakob? Jakob? I don't think he can hear us. That's a shame. But the league have set up a portal for people around the world to actually watch the games. There's obviously some good players that had already been attracting some interest from the rest of Europe. which obviously a chance to watch some football, and obviously Steve, it'll give the Burundi Premier League a run for its money, I am sure. What we're going to get into now is we're going to try through as many of these questions that everybody has been sending through, which is absolutely brilliant. The first one from Craig, the idea of inputting a wage cap. How would this have to be placed into law within the UK? And how do you feel a wage cap might work within the sort of top end, within the top leagues, Premier League and Championship? Guys, do you see a result of what's happening now, a wage cap being put in place? Glyn, I'll come to you first.
Probably do in League One and League Two, but I
Yeah.
don't know how you're going to manage that, because what's Sunderland wage cap going to be with gates of 30,000, and what's Grimsby's wage cap going to be on gates of 4,000?
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to. I think it would probably, if it's going to happen, I think it would happen in the bottom two divisions.
Yeah. Steve, obviously you've been sporting director of a Premier League club. Was there ever an appetite within your contemporaries at other clubs to put a wage cap in? Was it ever mooted?
Not really, not as a serious consideration. At the end of the day, the owners would love a wage cap, and they'd like to keep wages down. But it's economics, isn't it? It's supply and demand. And if you perceive that player to be worth X amount of money, then you've got to go along with whatever the norm is. But I do think there's going to be a reset. I think now people are going to, because of the situation, there's going to be more players available, more good players available. The players out of contract. When I've inquired about a few players and they say they're out of contract, and I say they've been offered another contract by the same club, I would say take it. The way things are at the moment, any offer that's on the table, don't be waiting too long to negotiate it. Take the offer, because you can always look back retrospectively then. But I think any offer that's out there at the moment, and it's a concrete offer and it's in tablets of stone, I would say take it. So that's my feelings.
Okay, we're going to try and get through as many of these questions as we can. Dean Simpson has been on, obviously been coaching overseas. Dean, I'll try and condense the question. Dean's asking, what do you think the situation will be in terms of recruitment of coaches? I guess in terms of the first team and down into the academy. Do you think that will be affected moving forward? Do you think we'll see less staff, or do you think we'll see a greater retention of the current staff? Guy, I'll come to you. I'll come to you first on that one.
I think a lot of things are going to be, like you said previously, are going to be affected just sheerly down to costings and finances. I think, it's an unprecedented time we're in. So employment of coaches, scouts, it's going to have a knock-on effect all the way down. We're just talking about player wage caps as well. And, staff, the amount of staff, even at my club when I'm walking around, is phenomenal. I've been brought up in the Football League and been around Leicester as a kid, but come back to Leicester and then come back again to Leicester. And it's grew and grew and grew, thanks to Steve here as well, being part of that. So to see the phenomenal size of my football club that I work for, my employment is huge. Lower down, I can imagine where I've worked before with other football clubs, staff are going to have to do more work. Staff are going to have to be multi-talented, multitasked to do more work within a football club to keep the football club ticking along. And I don't see anything wrong with that, if I'm honest. I think if there's a place for someone at a football club, it's important that they have multi-skills within that football club to help other departments out.
Absolutely. Yes, Tony, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to put in something as well there. There is one silver lining that I see out of this. And I think squad sizes, senior pro squad sizes up and down the leagues will be reduced, and hopefully there'll be more reliance on academy players, the talents that guys got, the talents that, you know, are just under the surface of the first team at Glyn's at Blackburn. They get more of an opportunity. They're in the match day squad. They get more minutes, and that might be a silver lining. You know, as long as these guys are, you know, they're coming through the academy, the good players, it might mean that they're given more of a chance, and that would be one good thing that potentially could come out of this.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the, oh, go on. Sorry. Go on, Guy.
Oh, I was in a Premier League meeting literally last week with all the guys from the Premier League performance team, and we were speaking about that, speaking about relaxing rules, speaking about implementing different things to give lads opportunities. But it's an exciting time for a young lad at the football club now because of that situation. You know, if you come back fitter and more, I would say, more at it than some of the senior pros, the manager's got to be turning heads. They've got to be looking around at you and thinking, well, I've got to go with that group. You know, some of these lads might be affected by this mentally, physically, you know, socially, and you might be on top of that list of the gaffer now, which I keep telling the guys, you know, if you come back fit and ready to go and hit the ground running, you've got a great opportunity now, better probably than ever, to be in around that match day squad. And that's, you know, another level to their game.
Absolutely. I want to try and get as many questions in as possible. Matt Ford has put a question in. It's a question for everybody. How does everybody feel about the leadership shown by the Premier League, the PFA, and the EFL? Matt says, you know, personally, doesn't feel it's been the best. At no time have they stood up together or individually, and certainly there's not a clear plan where the money within football supports football across all levels. Matt goes on to make the point that, as we all know, there is, you know, there's sufficient money, and he's right. If you look at the balance sheets of these organisations, that there is sufficient monies, and you know, if that money's redirected and certain short-term sacrifices are made across the board, it could be a better situation. So, you know, Steve, how have you defined the leadership shown by the main governing bodies in our game?
I think there's too many organisations with their own agendas. I think it comes back to the points that were made by Glyn before. It needs a concerted effort from governments and from the top leagues and the people who are in charge of our game to come together as a think tank and make decisions that are binding, that are government backed, so that we can go forward. And even if we don't agree with all of them, at least there'll be some sort of consensus. And those people are people from within the game who are making the right decisions. That's what
yeah. And Glyn, the PFA have gone through a terrible 12-18 months. We're now hearing that it's potentially Dave Kitson who's going to be the next leader. Do you think this situation has highlighted some of the systemic weaknesses in some of our governing bodies?
Yeah, without doubt. And going back to the question, I don't think we've had any leadership. To be fair, I don't think there's any leadership. Listen, they're unprecedented times, and we're all looking at each other and thinking, what's he going to say before we make a decision? But somewhere down the line, somebody's got to make a decision on saying, right, we're protecting 91 football league clubs, right? After we've been protected, we can sort everything out, you know, in line alongside it. I never thought I'd say this, but the more and more I watch Gary Neville on the telly, the more and more I just admire him, because he talks so much sense. He gets it done. He bangs the table. He's got a voice. He's been at top level. He's been Salford at lower level. I just think he speaks so much sense. If he were involved in it, I'd be chuffed to death. If he were involved in decision making at a higher level, I'd be delighted.
Tony, if you got any thoughts on that in terms of how you feel the governing bodies have conducted themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I fail to see, honestly, I fail to see the relevance of the PFA at sometimes. You know, players like to have agents to help them and guide them. And I hear so many bad stories about things that have happened with the PFA. That does really need a good root and branch reform for me. I think you know, this basic issue, we've got the Premier League, which is a fantastic business model that's generated fantastic amounts of money in our small country. So we've got this world league that's a fantastic, you know, you cannot criticize any of the guys who are involved in the Premier League, who brought this product to our little country, bolted it on, if you like, to the Football League. But let's not forget, we're all in this together in terms of football community, and they're all the way down the league. So we're not an American system where there's no relegation. You can go do a Swansea and go all the way through the leagues. And that's the beauty of our game in this country. And even though the Premier League have made fantastic amounts of money and they're now world clubs, not just English clubs, we have to still remember, and the FA and the Premier League and the Football League have to still remember that our product is so good because there's 90 plus, and if you count the National League, that's taken us into 100, who are all sustaining professional football.
Excellent. The next question I want to put is from Yaroslav. Yaroslav, I guess one for you, Tony, really. Do you think there's going to be any changes in terms of agents being able to sign players on rep contracts, and what will happen to the existing period of the rep contracts that are existing? Are we going to have to change the transfer windows?
Well, from an agent point of view, everyone's just pressed the pause button. You know, it's like you're watching a film and you press pause and then you pick it back up whenever. Contract to contract, and we're not going to change contract law. So if your contract's expiring with a player, you can do things remotely, you can speak to them remotely, you can Zoom and all that thing, but to get the actual contract signed, that shouldn't be a problem. It's more the day-to-day contact with your players, and that's what I've been missing, you know, that going to matches, seeing how they're getting on, all that type of thing. The transfer window, it's always been an arbitrary window, and we've changed the end date of it. We've changed back to the 31st or just into September, but it can be set to suit the circumstances. The transfer window is the least of our problems. You know, that can be set to finish in October if it needs to be, to finish in September if it needs to be. I'm not too concerned about that. What I am concerned about is, when would you want to sign a new player for the likes of Glyn, for the likes of Steve, you know, and Leicester? When do you want to sign that new player? You want your season to be over, really, don't you? Before you, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, one final question before we move on, and it's from Adam Horner. Adam is asking about what the potential additional impact that, and we've not spoke about it for a while, that Brexit will have. As we know, government are still ploughing ahead with us leaving either with or without a deal at the end of the year. And Adam's asking about whether people will think this might open up markets to allow players, for example, from South America to enter into our country easier, and these guys potentially will demand less money. Steve, I'm going to come to you first, because just to sort of segue to the States at the moment, obviously Trump has put a ban on all skilled immigration. Obviously that'll include footballers. What has been the chat there in terms about signing players as a result of what Dear Donald has said?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, the players who are out there in Europe and in America, who are playing in the leagues out there, and they have a USA passport, they're certainly players that we've got to really consider now, because it's going to be easier to sign somebody who has got a green card and is able to work in America. And so it has changed our thinking along those lines, because there are quite a lot of players out there who would qualify for status to work in the USA, and those are players that are really will increase in value in our eyes, and whether it is financially or not is another matter, but in our eyes. And also the employment of backroom staff, of coaches, of physios, of psychologists, of nutritionalists. That also is going to be a big part of what we do, and we may have to tap in more to the USA market than we previously thought of, and so that is a real consideration for us. As far as Europe is concerned, again, I think it's going to be done on a case-by-case basis, and I remember the times when I signed Andre Kramaric, for instance, when I was at Leicester, and I had to go to Wembley. We had to have an FA tribunal because they weren't part of the European setup at that time, and we had to make a case up for bringing him in that he wasn't taking the place of a worker that we already had at the club. So I can see that situation reoccurring now. So it's going to be more difficult to bring players from outside of the UK, which might actually help our game. It might give opportunities for our younger players, and also the thoughts about whether you release players now. Lads who are getting to that stage where they should be getting their first year contract, it could well be that you say, well, I'll tell you what, let's give another 12 months and let's see if they can develop, rather than actually casting them aside. So all clubs are going to have to think long and hard about both of those issues in recruitment.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to try Jakob again. I'm going to try him again. I'm going to go back. Although Jakob, I feel like you're still self-muted. It's telling me you're still self-muted. But Jakob has sent me a message there saying actually the FA in the Faroe Islands, you might need to get your suitcase ready, Glyn, because they're actually looking at if scouts from European football can circumnavigate the quarantine laws that are in there. And actually, they've put, by the looks of it, they've put a load of games back to back. So I think there's an opportunity to watch about half a dozen games in a couple of days.
He's working hard, isn't he? He's working hard.
he's working hard. Yeah, I've tried everything possible to get you on there, but it's not happening. Okay, we are going to.
Can you hear me?
Oh, Jakob,
wow.
right at the desk. You're there.
Hi. Sorry,
How are you?
We have some coronavirus on our system here.
This is it. How are things in the Faroe Islands?
Actually, things are very good. First, I want to say it's very nice seeing you guys again, and it could have been fun to see everybody that's on, but maybe next time. Hope you're all well, and this, of course, is a difficult situation for us all. We have actually been very lucky in the Faroe Islands. We have only had 100 and some cases of the coronavirus as we shut down the society and the borders very early. We have only had 2 people in hospital, but they were not on a ventilator. So actually, a salmon virus that was here many years ago had done that the laboratories had a very good system to test as many people as possible and put people in quarantine so they weren't walking out in society. And this has made it that we are slowly closing up our society again, and workers can come in to make special assignments that are not being able to be done by Faroese people. And we are now trying to see if we can get scouts under the same circumstances, maybe flying in on a Friday, being picked up at the airport, staying at the hotel, going to 5-6 games, going back to the hotel and fly out again. So it's not the person will not be able to go out and enjoy our beautiful nature, but still football is football, so we're going to try to do that. But our league, as it is now, will start on the 9th of May. And there will be 5 games on the 9th of May that will be able to be watched on television. And if you contact me, I'll give you all the details. The broadcaster charges about £4 a game. But we are trying to get a package put together that will enable us to give you a better price. And there are some young, very good players that will play in the league this year. But obviously, the first games are only after the players have been out of football training for 6 weeks and only been back in training for 10 days. But as it looks now, our league will start, but they will monitor it very, very closely after every game.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that, Jakob. I'll share your details with everybody after the webinar, and obviously with so little football going on, I saw Glyn. There's a lot of nodding there, Glyn, which means you want to get out gardening and you want to get over. So potentially some good opportunities there.
Yeah. And sorry, Glyn, we did have a Farish player at your current club, Gunnar Nilsson, who then went with Mark Hughes to Man City.
Yeah.
So get
Fantastic.
another one in there.
Thank you.
Enjoy your week.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move on again. We want to go back to that one, and we're going to bring in Jed. Jed, let me just get to you. Jed, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hiya, Jed. How are you?
Is that Chris Tarrant?
It is Chris Tarrant. Yeah. You're. I'm sitting here with a friend of yours, Tony Sharkey. Yeah.
I thought it was phone a friend there for a moment. Tony was struggling with a question. That's what it was.
Excellent. Jed, before we get into the work that you've been doing, do you just want to just give a very sort of brief overview of your career so far and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah. So thank you, Ryan. So hello, everyone. Hope you're all well and health and safety. Basically, I was West Ham's first team scout for a number of years, doing opposition reports and domestic scouting and European scouting for the club. I was chief scout at Grimsby Town twice, which I think every single person on the panel has mentioned Grimsby today. So I think their season ticket sales will be going up next year from you guys. And I was Leighton Orient chief scout for a while, for a season as well. But then for the last year now, I've been running workshops, scouting workshops, recruiting workshops, also doing some work with yourself and Tony with the ASA agent courses as well, but running workshops on scouting and recruitment across the UK and doing some stuff in Spain as well. And at the moment now I've got some online courses and online workshops, so keep myself busy.
Excellent. And we've just got a little graphic that we've put up on there that you can hopefully see as well. Do you just want to talk us through, what that image sort of represent and what you're working on at the moment?
Okay. So on my recruitment workshops, a part of the course that I do now, I to explain to the attendees, but a lot of these guys are agents and scouts and coaches. But I explain how clubs in the Premier League and Football League put their squads together. So how they work out they've got a balanced squad due to positions and ages and contracts and so on, and sort of explain to them scouts, if you're working for a club, this is how you should and how professional clubs generally put the squads together. But I also mentioned to agents, this is also something that could be possibly useful for you guys. So when you are approaching the club, you can actually work out what the club needs, what positions they've got covered, what areas of age groups are covered, contract lengths, and potentially what areas need filling for the next season. And obviously we've done this, touched on this on the ASA Level 2 agents course with Ryan and obviously Tony as well. And it was just something we've took further, gone further ahead with it. And basically we've created the squad charts and information of every club in the Premier League and Football League. So we've got information of all the 91 clubs now in the Premier League Football League of how their squads are structured, what positions they've got covered, and what ages and potential positions they would need covering for next season. I'm sure there's some, obviously you can't really see from that graph there, but I'm sure you potentially might be able to show the guys potentially something as well. Basically, this is a guide and a help that basically will be helpful to all agents. Basically, it's something I think basically you would have to have, because this would save you not only hours of work, days of work, weeks, but potentially months of work. You can work out what clubs to target to try and move your players towards.
Yeah.
Only would you agree with that?
Go on,
Yeah,
Tony.
could you show? Have you got the Newcastle squad list up there?
No, there's nothing. It's just that image, Tony.
All right, okay. It's just show a little bit more detail about it. I think we can probably send some out to the guys that have tuned into the webinar.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the areas that's covered on there, you've actually got the graph is set up, the chart is set up, where you've actually got every playing position for the club, what players that the club has currently got in those positions, what ages covered, what the contract details. We've also got contact details of the people at the clubs as well that potentially you can actually go and try and contact, recent transfer history, and also we've got some transfer commentary on there of how clubs have acted in previous transfers as well. We've gained this information has come from many different sources, from people that I know myself, so Tony knows as well. I spoke to Tony regarding this as well, and it's just something that will help all agents. It's something that basically you will need this, because this will save you hours, weeks, months of work to help you through to actually potentially get the players that you are working with at the moment, find what clubs they would be suitable for next season and going
Great
forward.
stuff. And how do people get in touch with you, Jez?
Or to get in touch through forum here will be a good first place, I would say. Tony, for you, would you say that?
Yeah, we'll be in touch with everyone after the forum about the Squad Plus presentation, and then if we can take it from there, because it's still in its sort of development phase, so we probably need a bit of feedback as well from people at clubs.
Can I give you a bit of feedback?
Yeah.
In regards to live and also weekly and probably monthly with the game, how it turns around so quickly, how is the product going to, I would say, materialize live data, or is it going to be an online subscription, or is it going to be a weekly fact finder file sent to you? How are you going to monetize that?
Well, the idea is to have updates regular when people, because obviously it's something, as you guys know, it's something that's constantly changing all the time. All the information that's on there at the moment, like contract details and so on, is everything that is current as what it is today. When things change, then will be updated versions of this as well available. But as you know, life in football moves very, very quickly and things change. But details there are literally stuff that contract details and so on there. You can clearly work out what's going to be happening next year. Things will change, but this will give agents a massive head start and save them so much time.
And people at football clubs, that's why I stepped in.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at this, understanding where I might want to pitch my players to. And if I'm sitting there saying that Newcastle United have got a player in that position and probably 3 players in that position, why are you trying to sign one of our midfielders, say? If the information's current and on point with the information that's out there right now, then it's a very viable source for a football club as well, not just agents.
No, Guy, it's a great point you make, and I've got the Rotherham sheet here. So I know you've got your goalkeeper at Rotherham, haven't you, Daniel Everson? Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with him next season, but Rotherham are undoubtedly going to be looking.
We know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a good example to use because Rotherham are undoubtedly, that's a question mark. They've got 2 goalkeepers coming out of contract. They've got your keeper there on loan, so they potentially need 2 or 3 keepers. So if Daniel's had a good time and he wants to go back or he wants to move up, that's your business. But it at least tells clubs and agents and loan managers where the gaps are in other people's squads. And it goes back to my point before about the young players getting an opportunity, not just at your club, but further down, you know, where League Ones, the League Twos, the National Leagues, what they need. I don't think Jed's got on the National League yet, but he's worked on the Football League for sure. So yeah, it's going to be a useful tool, I think.
Only, as we said, this can be done. I mean, they said the team of scouts and staff that I've got here now, this can be done on demand if a league was needed. This could be covered. So we've got the contacts, we've got the work, the man hours put in now. But they said it just goes into a little bit more detail. It's not just a chart showing this position are covered, but it's the areas of age groups and the groupings of players is very important. Because potentially there's clubs that we've found that they've got potentially goalkeepers. Every goalkeeper they've got is over the age of 33 years of age, with contracts running out. You know, as a club, they don't want to be in that situation. They need obviously some younger goalkeepers in there as well. Obviously slightly more lesser in experience, but also players that in a potential where they've actually got some market value to them as well going forward. So this kind of makes that clear for you as well. And also you'll see some clubs, they've got one position, maybe potentially right backs, or the right backs at the under the age of 21, where you know that club is probably looking for more of a senior player next year to boost that squad as well. So this information is all there. It's very clear. It's in front of you, and you can work out where your player fits in potentially into a club's future.
Jed,
Excellent.
Can we get onto the MLS for Steve and give him a free copy?
We will draft that one for him. That's not a problem. We'll do that for him.
We like free.
I'm only doing that if he invites me over there for a long weekend, so I can do some workshops there. Okay.
American passport holders only. Yeah.
You want to play Myrtle Beach, don't you?
Thank you very much, Jed. Really appreciate your contribution there.
No problem. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Jed.
Yes.
Right, we are coming right to the end now. But what we're going to finish with is a poll. So if everybody can answer this poll when I launch it, and the question is, when will football in its entirety be back to normal? So what I'm including here is I'm including the Premier League, the EFL, and all of the non-league. When do we go back to normality? So I'm going to launch it, and you pick your answer.
Can't do it.
So just a few more seconds to vote then. We've had about 80% of people vote. So if you've not cast your vote, cast it now. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so that's how it looks. So 37% of people don't think that we'll be back until August 2021. Steve, what do you make of that?
I was a little bit undecided myself. There's just so many variables. It's so difficult to estimate. It could well be the case. Health has got to be the #1 priority. And if that's compromised in any way, it's not fair to people in the industry. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to anybody. So let's get this virus out of the way, and then let's seriously think about getting our #1 sport back.
Yeah, Guy, which option did you vote for there?
Yeah, I was longer rather than shorter, so I was September. I think if we can finish the league and make it fair, competitive again, and safe, I think it'll be a great environment to be back and something to look forward to. I think there's saving lives got to be the most important thing, and staying in and being safe, and I mean that. So my missus is NHS. She comes home with scare stories every day, so it's incredible that we're making this discussion, but it's also imperative that we get and be safe for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, Glyn, which one did you vote for? When do you think we'll be back to normal?
I go with September. I agree with what Guy says. Steve, health comes first. I must admit, the longer and longer it goes on, we're going to end up with questioning what we actually started this forum with, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that brings us to an end. It looks like Tony has disappeared on us right at the death. I think he's gone to book his flights to the Faroe Islands personally. I think.
I haven't.
Okay, you're there. I want to thank Guy. I want to thank Glyn. I want to thank Steve for coming on. I want to thank everybody else for contributing and being on. We had up to 70 people there, which is absolutely great. Obviously, for myself and Tony, please look after everybody and each other, and hopefully we'll all get a chance to get together a bit later on in the year as well. So thanks very much, and look after yourselves.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Guy. Brilliant.
Bye.
Brilliant.